Colin Turner, former Marine Corps gunnery sergeant, father of two, pursuing his master's degree at Johns Hopkins. His future seemed bright until September 8, 2021. Like, subscribe and share to follow this investigation. 3 911 calls in one day would end with a gunshot heard live over the phone. On September 8, 2021, at exactly 6:22 p.m., Colin Turner made his final call to 911 from his garage in Gulf Breeze, Florida. This peaceful coastal community near Pensacola, known for its excellent schools and pristine beaches, was about to become the setting for an unthinkable tragedy. "You guys have been out to my house twice today," Colin told the emergency dispatcher, his voice strained with frustration and desperation. Earlier that day, police officers had responded to domestic disputes at the Turner residence, but their interventions had failed to resolve the escalating conflict between Colin and his wife, Bri Turner. Colin explained to the operator that his wife had locked him in the garage after what he described as a physical altercation where she tried to break my arm. The 33-year-old former Marine Corps gunnery sergeant found himself trapped, seeking help from the same police department that had already visited his home twice within the past 6 hours. Gulf Breeze residents were accustomed to quiet neighborhood disputes, not life-threatening domestic violence. The small Florida town represented the American dream for many military families stationed at nearby Naval Air Station Pensacola. Colin and Bri Turner had seemed to fit this ideal perfectly. Both military veterans building a blended family together. As Colin spoke with the 911 operator, describing his predicament and requesting police assistance, the conversation took a horrific turn. The sound of gunshots suddenly erupted through the phone line, followed by an eerie silence that would haunt the dispatcher forever. Colin Turner's voice disappeared, replaced by an ominous quiet that signaled something terrible had occurred. Emergency responders rushed to the Turner residence on Danbury Drive. When officers arrived, they discovered they couldn't access the garage through normal means. The door remained locked from the inside, forcing them to crawl underneath to reach Colin. What they found inside would transform a domestic dispute into a murder investigation. Colin Turner lay motionless on the garage floor, covered in blood, with what appeared to be 3 gunshot wounds to his chest. The 911 operator who had been speaking with him moments earlier realized she had just witnessed a murder unfold in real time over the phone. The father of 2 young children, who had been pursuing an electrical engineering degree and had been accepted into a master's program at Johns Hopkins University, would never see his future plans come to fruition. The question that would consume investigators, prosecutors, and the Gulf Breeze community was simple, yet devastating. What had driven this military family to such a tragic conclusion? Police officers immediately secured the Turner residence as a crime scene, beginning their investigation into what had clearly become a homicide case. Their systematic search of the property quickly revealed crucial evidence that would later prove essential in court proceedings. The murder weapon was discovered hidden behind a toaster in the kitchen, suggesting deliberate concealment rather than panic. This placement indicated premeditation and conscious effort to hide evidence immediately after the shooting occurred. 3 children were present at the scene during this traumatic event. Colin and Bri's 2 young children, aged 4 and 3, along with Bri's 12-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. The presence of these innocent witnesses added another layer of tragedy to an already devastating situation. Officers located Bri Turner on a neighbor's porch, speaking with her eldest daughter. Body camera footage captured her immediate confession when officers approached and asked if she was all right. "I shot him," she admitted without hesitation, her voice carrying a mixture of shock and resignation. Bri's behavior in those crucial first moments revealed her conflicted mental state. She initially appeared surprised by the gravity of her actions, asking officers repeatedly if Colin was still alive. When reality set in, her emotional breakdown was captured entirely on police video, providing investigators with unfiltered insight into her immediate psychological response. "My kids don't have a dad or a mom now, and it's my fault," she sobbed to officers, recognizing the devastating impact her actions would have on their family. Her next statement was even more telling. "I'm a murderer." Despite her confession and apparent remorse, Bri simultaneously insisted that officers should arrest her while expressing desperate hope that Colin might have survived the shooting. This contradictory behavior suggested someone grappling with the immediate consequences of an irreversible decision. Officers confirmed that Colin Turner was deceased and that emergency medical services would not be required. The finality of this confirmation marked the end of what had been a day filled with escalating domestic disputes and the beginning of a complex investigation into what had driven a military family to such a tragic conclusion. The immediate crime scene evidence painted a clear picture of intentional homicide. but the underlying motivations remained a mystery that investigators would need to unravel. Bree Turner was born in May 1987, beginning a journey that would eventually intersect with Colin Turner through their shared military service. After graduating from East Mississippi Community College in 2012 at age 25, she made the decision to join the United States Navy, embarking on a career that would define much of her adult life. Colin Turner had already established himself as a dedicated Marine, serving 14 years in the Corps and advancing to the rank of gunnery sergeant. His military career came to an end when he received a medical discharge due to a traumatic brain injury, transitioning him from active duty to civilian life with the challenges that many veterans face. Their paths crossed through military service, where both were committed to serving their country while managing the complexities of children from previous relationships. This shared experience created a foundation for their relationship, built on mutual understanding of military life's demands and sacrifices. The couple's commitment to building a blended family became evident through the birth of their first child together in 2017, followed by a second child in 2018. These additions created a household of 5, combining Bree's daughter from a previous relationship with their 2 biological children. Colin's post-military transition showcased his determination to build a different future for his family. He embraced the role of stay-at-home father, channeling his ambitions into education rather than traditional employment. His academic pursuits were impressive, studying electrical engineering online while managing household duties and childcare responsibilities. His educational success culminated in acceptance into a master's program at Johns Hopkins University, scheduled to begin in January 2022. This achievement represented hope and planning for a future that would never materialize, highlighting the tragedy of potential cut short by violence. Meanwhile, Bree continued her naval service as a leading petty officer at Naval Air Station Pensacola, maintaining her role as the family's primary breadwinner. This dynamic created a non-traditional but functional arrangement where she provided financial stability while Colin managed domestic responsibilities. Despite their shared military background and apparent commitment to family success, cracks had begun appearing in their relationship foundation. Recent Facebook activity revealed troubling signs. Colin had tagged Bree in a meme about archaeologists being skilled at digging up the past, while Bree had been privately seeking advice about divorce lawyers. Her inquiries specifically mentioned anticipating an ugly contested divorce case involving children and property, suggesting that their military partnership had deteriorated into something far more adversarial than either had originally envisioned for their future together. September 8, 2021, began with domestic tensions that would escalate throughout the day, documented through 3 separate 911 calls that painted a comprehensive picture of a relationship in crisis. The first emergency call came at 12:53 p.m., when Bree Turner contacted police claiming that Colin had physically assaulted her during an argument about his plans to take their children to Georgia for the weekend. She described being thrown to the floor and pushed against the wall, alleging a pattern of behavior where Colin would use the kids against me. Bree's statements to the responding officers revealed her growing desperation about their deteriorating marriage. She mentioned having appointments with divorce attorneys and expressed her unwillingness to have Colin remain in their home. Her allegations painted Colin as physically aggressive and manipulative, using their children as leverage in their relationship disputes. However, when police officers arrived to investigate Bree's abuse claims, they found no physical evidence to support her allegations. Despite her emotional distress and detailed accusations, officers explained that without visible injuries or corroborating proof, they couldn't take legal action against Colin based solely on her statements. The officers offered to help Bree file a formal statement that could potentially be used for a court order, providing her with legal options for protection. Surprisingly, she refused this assistance, stating that her immediate priority was caring for their children, rather than pursuing legal remedies against her husband. The second 911 call occurred at 5 p.m., this time from Colin's perspective. He reported being locked out of his house after Bree had taken his identification and removed his access to financial resources. His account of events differed dramatically from his wife's earlier allegations. Colin described Bree's increasingly erratic behavior, including her decision to put his laptop computer through the dishwasher after he had turned off their home's Wi-Fi connection. This destructive act suggested escalating retaliation and property damage as their conflict intensified throughout the day. During his conversation with police, Colin referenced Bree's mental health struggles, specifically mentioning her borderline personality disorder and what he characterized as her history of making false allegations. These statements provided context for the conflicting accounts officers had received from both parties. Police officers attempted to mediate between the couple, recognizing the complex dynamics at play in their domestic situation. Their efforts focused on de-escalation and encouraging both parties to resolve their differences without further law enforcement intervention. The officers' ultimate decision to leave both Colin and Bree at the residence together created dramatic irony in hindsight. Their departure, intended to allow the couple space to work through their issues, inadvertently set the stage for the fatal encounter that would occur just over an hour later. The pattern established through these first two calls revealed escalating tensions, conflicting narratives about abuse and victimization, and ineffective police intervention in preventing further escalation. Neither Colin nor Bree appeared willing or able to de-escalate their conflict independently. The police department's limitations became apparent. Without clear evidence of criminal behavior or immediate danger, officers could offer mediation but couldn't force separation or resolution. This gap between available interventions and actual need would prove tragically insufficient in preventing the day's final, fatal encounter. Around 2 p.m., on September 8th, following the first police visit to his home, Colin Turner made a crucial phone call to Bree's Navy Command at Naval Air Station Pensacola. This contact would provide investigators with an additional perspective on the couple's deteriorating relationship from military personnel who knew both parties professionally. Colin reported what the Navy classified as emotional abuse to Bree's superior officers. His specific allegations included Bree's removal of his access to financial resources and her deliberate destruction of his computer equipment. These actions fit the military's definition of emotional abuse, which encompasses financial control and property damage as forms of domestic abuse. Bree's superior officer later testified about Colin's demeanor during this phone conversation, describing him as very reasonable and very casual, rather than escalated or frantic. This characterization contradicted any portrayal of Colin as an unstable or threatening individual, providing important context about his mental state and behavior patterns. The Navy's protocol for handling domestic issues required them to assess safety concerns for both parties. When questioned separately about their safety at home, both Colin and Bree initially provided reassuring responses that suggested no immediate danger. Colin expressed that he felt safe in his home environment, while Bree told her military command that she also felt safe with her children present. These statements directly contradicted her later claims to police about fearing for her safety, creating significant inconsistencies in her narrative about the threat Colin posed. Military personnel had been monitoring Bree's declining performance and concerning behavior patterns. Her service record included previous Baker Act proceedings following a suicide attempt, ongoing medication requirements, and mandatory therapy sessions designed to address her mental health needs. Recent months had shown deteriorating compliance with military expectations. Bree had been missing scheduled therapy sessions and calling out sick from work with increasing frequency. Her superiors recognized these behaviors as warning signs of erratic conduct and potential crisis. The military perspective provided crucial insight into both parties' reliability and mental states. Colin's reasonable interaction with Navy personnel contrasted sharply with Bree's claims about his violent and unstable behavior, raising questions about the accuracy of her allegations. This military involvement demonstrated that their domestic issues had extended beyond their home into their professional lives, affecting Bree's naval service and requiring intervention from her chain of command. The final hour before Colin Turner's death was documented through text message evidence that would later prove crucial during trial proceedings. These communications provided investigators with real-time insight into Colin's mental state and his growing understanding of his wife's behavioral patterns. At 1:25 p.m., right around the time Bree was recording a confrontational cell phone video, Colin sent text messages to Bree's ex-boyfriend, who was the father of her 12-year-old daughter. These messages revealed Colin's desperation and his assessment of the deteriorating situation at home. "Hey man, Bree's losing it. She ran my laptop through the dishwasher last night because I turned the Wi-Fi off. I'm planning on getting out of here with the little kids, but she's already told me she'll press charges if I take Kylie with me," Colin wrote, revealing both the property damage and his concerns about Bree's threats regarding their children. The ex-boyfriend responded with sympathy and understanding, creating a dialogue that would continue throughout that tragic day. His supportive responses suggested he recognized the behavior patterns Colin was describing from his own previous relationship with Bree. Colin's final text message was sent at 6:09 p.m., just 13 minutes before the shooting that would end his life. This message demonstrated a crucial realization about Bree's behavior across multiple relationships. "Going to be worse before it gets better too. She's always told her stories about you, and I thought you sucked. but now that I think about it, she's crazy as hell, and probably did the same stuff to you. This communication revealed Colin's growing awareness that Bree's allegations about previous partners might have been part of a consistent pattern rather than isolated incidents. His recognition came tragically late, as he was beginning to understand the manipulation and false narratives that had characterized her relationship history. At 6:22 p.m., Colin made his final 911 call from the garage where Bree had locked him. He was actively seeking help from the same police officers who had visited their home twice earlier that day, but who had been unable to resolve the underlying crisis. The dramatic climax occurred when gunshots were heard over the phone line during his conversation with the 911 operator. Colin's voice fell silent, and the emergency dispatcher realized she had just witnessed a murder unfold in real time over the telephone. Immediately after the shooting, Bree called her ex-boyfriend to inform him of what she had done. "I just shot Colin," she told him directly. When he asked why she had committed this act, her response was chilling in its simplicity. "I don't know." This final communication highlighted the senseless nature of the violence and Bree's apparent confusion about her own motivations, setting the stage for investigators to determine what had driven her to murder. Following Colin Turner's death, investigators faced the unusual situation of having their suspect immediately identified and in custody. However, understanding the motive behind the killing remained their primary challenge as they began questioning Bree Turner about the events that led to her husband's death. During police interrogation, Bree provided confused and contradictory accounts of the shooting that raised more questions than answers. She claimed she didn't mean to shoot him, while simultaneously admitting that she had fired at least twice, creating an obvious inconsistency in her explanation of events. Critical gaps emerged in Bree's story that investigators found impossible to reconcile with physical evidence. She couldn't explain why she had been holding the gun when she approached the garage door, nor could she describe any threatening behavior from Colin that would have justified using deadly force against him. The forensic evidence contradicted any claim of self-defense that Bree might have attempted to make. Autopsy findings revealed that Colin had been shot in the back, with entrance wounds that made it impossible for him to have been advancing toward Bree or posing an immediate physical threat when she fired. A particularly revealing moment came during Bree's phone call with her father while in police custody. Unlike her statements to detectives about fearing for her life, she admitted to her father that she didn't know whether Colin was actually going to hurt her, undermining her self-defense narrative. During this emotional conversation with her father, Bree's true feelings about Colin became apparent. She referred to him as my best friend, my husband, father of my kids, and expressed devastating regret, saying she had killed him and fucked up everybody else's life. These statements revealed the depth of her recognition about what she had destroyed. Investigators recognized that Bree had deliberately locked Colin in the garage, removing his ability to escape before shooting him in the back. This evidence pointed toward premeditation rather than spontaneous self-defense, suggesting she had planned the attack rather than reacting to immediate danger. The investigation revealed a pattern of escalating control and abuse from Bree toward Colin, including financial manipulation through removing his access to money and property destruction, such as putting his laptop through the dishwasher. These behaviors painted a picture of someone who had killed her husband not out of fear, but out of anger over his plans to leave with their children. The evidence collected during the investigation would prove crucial in establishing that this was a calculated murder rather than a tragic accident or justified self-defense, setting the foundation for the prosecution's case against Bree Turner. 3 years after Colin Turner's death, Bree Turner faced trial in September 2024 for first-degree murder. Prosecutors presented a comprehensive case built on body camera footage, recorded police interviews, and crucial digital evidence from both parties' phones in the days leading up to the murder. A key piece of evidence was Bree's pre-recorded cell phone video from just before she made her first 911 call. This footage captured the couple's argument, where Colin accused her of being emotionally unstable due to his military disability, providing context for their deteriorating relationship and her mindset before the shooting. The defense initially planned to present Bree as a victim of domestic abuse, suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. This strategy aimed to justify her actions as self-defense against an abusive husband. But the plan was abandoned when Bree chose not to testify after consulting with her attorneys for almost an hour. The defense's sole witness was Bree's brother Eric, who testified about allegedly hearing the altercation over the phone. His testimony included Bree's claim that she was getting a gun to protect the kids, attempting to establish her protective rather than aggressive intentions during the incident. However, the prosecution successfully challenged Eric's credibility by pointing out significant inconsistencies in his account. He had never mentioned the crucial gun conversation in his earlier interviews with police investigators, raising questions about whether this testimony was truthful or fabricated to support his sister's defense. The evidence presented during trial painted a clear picture of premeditation and domestic abuse with Bree as the perpetrator rather than victim. Text messages, police reports, and witness testimony consistently contradicted her claims of self-defense and fear for her safety. The jury deliberated for just 4 hours before returning a verdict of guilty of first-degree murder, rejecting the self-defense claim entirely. Their relatively quick decision suggested that the evidence against Bree was overwhelming, and that her explanations were not credible to the jurors. Bree Turner was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring she would never again have the opportunity to harm another person as she had killed Colin. The sentence reflected the severity of her crime and the premeditated nature of her actions. The tragedy's impact extended far beyond Bree and Colin to the children who survived this domestic violence incident. Bree's 12-year-old daughter now lives with her biological father, while Colin and Bree's 2 young children continue growing up without either parent present in their lives. The case raised important questions about whether earlier police intervention might have prevented this tragedy, given the 3 emergency calls made that day and officers' inability to predict or prevent the escalation to murder. This reflects broader challenges in domestic violence prevention and the tragic consequences when family disputes spiral beyond control, leaving innocent children to bear the lasting consequences of adult violence.